Taijuan Walker continues to pitch really, really well, and I have to give him a lot of credit. Let's talk about it next, right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zula here, and today I thought we'd talk about one of the unsung heroes of this Phillies team in 2025 as they continue their push to the postseason. It's Taijuan Walker. We've talked about him before, but he turned in another good start last night, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for the work that he's done this season. And it's not even just a numerical thing, but I think it maybe is a larger scale, has something to do with the fact that he's been jostled back and forth between a starter's role, a bullpen role, a long relief role, back to the rotation. He's picked up where everybody else has left off and kind of done it seamlessly, or as seamlessly as you can. You know, for a guy who doesn't throw particularly hard, doesn't strike out a ton of hitters, he's been really, really good this year so far. And I think, especially considering our expectations of Taijuan Walker, which heading into the season were probably pretty low, it's fair to say he has wildly exceeded all of our expectations and continues to be an important piece to this Phillies team. Let's take a look back at last night for just a second before we dive into a little bit deeper detail. What's been different between this year and last year and why he's been way more successful in 2025. Last night, another 6 solid innings. He gave up 6 hits, just the 1 earned run, only 2 strikeouts, just 1 walk. He got the no decision, but the Phillies ended up winning the game. And the reality of last night's start, more important than him getting a win, or a loss in this game, was the fact that he kept them in the game when the Phillies offense didn't have anything. Andrew Abbott was really, really good. He was perfect through 4. He had only allowed 1 base runner through the first 5+ innings. He was really sharp in the game and kept the Phillies offense in check. Taijuan Walker kept the Reds in check. He gave up the first inning run. He threw 27 pitches in the first inning and then really settled in nicely to give up no more earned runs over the final 5 innings. So he ends up throwing 93 pitches over 6 innings. But as I said, 27 pitches in the first inning. That means he was only at about 66 pitches the rest of the way through the final 5 innings, which is an average of just over 13 pitches per inning. He really kind of honed in, got a lot of weak contact, got a lot of, early outcomes in the first couple of pitches of the at-bat, and he did a really nice job of keeping the Reds off balance for a majority of the game. His average exit velocity yesterday was just 85.9 miles an hour. And on the cutter, which was the pitch that he's primarily used, not just yesterday as his primary pitch, but more throughout the entirety of the season, the average exit velocity on the cutter was just 80.2 miles an hour. And I think for him, he was in the zone a perfect amount, just at about 59%, 49% on the day, which I think is pretty much right where he should sit for 2 reasons. The first is, obviously, he doesn't throw all that hard, so he doesn't have a ton of swing and miss stuff. You don't want him living in the zone a ton because that's when he's going to start to run into some problems. But the second part is he's allowed to live outside of the zone a little bit more when he gets ahead in the count, which is something that he did a pretty good amount yesterday after the first inning, which is where he can start to set the splitter up down or run the cutter in on the hands of the lefty or run the breaking ball away to the right-handed hitters. That's where Taijuan Walker has found a majority of his success. Last night, he only gave up 5 hard hit balls. We said the average exit velocity was 86. The Reds were just 2 for 5 on those 5 hard hit balls. But inversely, 8 balls that were hit last night came off the bats of the Reds at 80 miles an hour or less, including 4 of which were less than 70 miles an hour. And after the first inning last night, he only gave up 3 hits and 1 walk the rest of the way. So he was really good yesterday. And in fact, he's been really good since re-entering the rotation. He did that back on July 8th. So far, he's appeared in 6 games or started in 6 games since re-entering the rotation. He's only 1-0, but the Phillies are 4-2 in those 6 starts. And in both losses, he did not take the loss. They ended up losing late in the game in those 2 losses. So over those 6 starts, just over 5 innings pitched per start, 30 2/3 innings. He's given up just 10 earned runs, which is good for a 2.92 ERA. He has given up 34 hits, which is expected considering he doesn't throw particularly hard, but he's issued just 4 walks, and it's a reason as to why his whip over that time frame is just 1.23, which is slightly below his 1.29 season whip. The Phillies have had a chance to win pretty much every game that Taijuan Walker has started since re-entering the rotation over a month ago at this point. He's been really good. So what's the difference been between 2025 Taijuan Walker and 2024 Taijuan Walker? Well, first, let's just take a look at the numbers, and we'll start there. 25 appearances so far this year for Walker, 14 starts. He's at an 85 innings pitched, just 62 strikeouts. Again, this is something that we've come to expect with Taijuan Walker. Doesn't throw nearly as hard as he did when he was younger, so he's not going to generate a ton of swing and miss. He's not going to generate a ton of strikeout numbers, but the walks have been the biggest thing. He's down to just 26 walks this year so far through his first 85 innings pitched, which is sizably different than the 37 walks that he allowed last year through 83 and 2/3. And it's why his whip is significantly better at 1.29 for the entirety of the season. And then you see that bottom line right there, a 3.39 ERA from your fifth starter, from your swing guy. You can't ask for anything more than that. And opponents this year are hitting just 252 off of Taijuan Walker compared to 2024, where he made 19 appearances, including 15 starts. And first and foremost, you see all that blue on the Baseball Savant page. He was in basically the bottom 10 or 15 percentile in almost every statistical category in terms of average exit velocity, chase rate, whiff rate, strikeout rate, barrel rates, hard hit rates. Last year was a dreadful year for Taijuan Walker, and it's why I think a lot of us had very little expectations for Walker heading into 2025. You see it there. He's at about the same amount of innings pitched, but it's fewer strikeouts, it's more walks, it's sizably more hits given up last year than he did this year. 107 hits allowed over 83 innings last year, and it's why he had a 1.72 whip compared to the much more manageable 1.29 that he's got this year. And then at the bottom, of course, you see the big numbers. A 317 opponent batting average and a 7.1 ERA for Taijuan Walker last year. We've said it plenty, right? It was a dreadful year for Walker, and he's been much better this year so far. So what's the reason as to why Taijuan Walker's been so much better this year as opposed to last year? First and foremost, I think it's the command. Since rejoining that rotation, as we talked about on July 8th, he's issued just 4 walks. And the one that he gave up last night was the first walk that he's allowed since July 19th. We're talking about almost a month's worth of starts for Taijuan Walker without a walk issued before last night. And as we said, a ton of hits, 37 walks last season. This year, he's down to 11 fewer with more innings pitched so far. And I think the big reason behind that is because he's not falling behind nearly as many hitters. Last year, he really struggled with strike one. Last year, opponents started their at-bats 1-0 141 times last year against Taijuan Walker. And if you want to extrapolate it even further, they started their at-bats 2-0 last year, 51 separate times. And in those 1-0 counts last year, they hit 364 off of Taijuan Walker and well above 400 when they got the count to 2-0. So basically, Taijuan Walker was falling behind too frequently last year and then giving up a lot of base hits, giving up a lot of extra base hits. And these two things really kind of played a huge part as to why he had a 46.3% hard hit percentage last year. Now let's flash forward to this year, where he has 129 at-bats so far after 1-0 counts, which means he's gotten 16 fewer at-bats to start 1-0, despite the fact that he's now thrown more innings compared to last year. And opponents are only hitting 223 in at-bats after 1-0 counts. So even in the time that he is falling behind, he's been significantly better in battling back and getting more positive outcomes than what he did a season ago. And on top of it, his hard hit percentage this year has come down pretty sizably. He's gone down from 46% last year all the way down to under 38% this season. And we talked about the average exit velocity in yesterday's game. That's pretty much played a factor in the entirety of Taijuan Walker's season. The average exit velocity this year so far is down over 2 full miles an hour compared to what it was a season ago. He was in about 91.5 last year. He's down to about 89 this season. And because of the lack of hard hit percentage, because of the lack of average exit velocity, his barrel rates have also come down from 13.4% last year to 6.6% this season. So he's more than halved his barrel rate from a year ago to this year. And his first pitch strike percentage is up over 3% this year as well. So for Walker, really what it comes down to is throwing strike one and limiting the hard contact. And that, I think, has played a huge part as to why all of his numbers have gone in the right direction this season. I think the other noteworthy piece is his pitch sequencing this year. Last year, he was sinker dominant. 26% of the time, he threw the sinker almost 400 times last year. This year, that number's down to less than 290. That's down to about 20% of the season total pitches for Taijuan Walker. Instead, he has swapped out the sinker for the cutter as his primary pitch, which he's now using 31% of the time. And the cutter's had significantly more success than the sinker did as the primary pitch. Now, the cutter is not a swing and miss pitch, and Walker really doesn't need it to be. It's a miss the barrel, induce weak contact type of pitch, and that's kind of exactly what he's gotten. Last year, the average exit velocity on Taijuan Walker's sinker was 92 miles an hour. This year, the average exit velocity on his cutter is less than 87 miles an hour. So he's getting significantly weaker contact by using that cutter to miss barrels, to miss hard hit percentages, and induce some much weaker contact because that cutter has a little bit of late movement and it's missing the barrel of the bat. And this season, opponents on the cutter are hitting just 212, and the expected average is actually less than what that is at about 200. So the computers are almost telling you that Taijuan Walker could have more success with the cutter so far this season. I think all in all, we can't ask for anything more than what Taijuan Walker has provided for the Phillies so far this year. As a starter, as a bullpen piece, as a long man, he's been jostled back and forth a ton of different times so far this year. And what he's given Rob Thompson is the confidence that somebody is going to take the ball every fifth day. The Phillies have needed somebody to step in that number 5 spot to supplement how good their 1 through 3 and how sometimes how good their 1 through 4 has been. And Taijuan Walker has done a really nice job of taking that role. So as much flack as we gave Taijuan Walker last season, and I think justifiably so, and he would probably tell you, he knew he wasn't good last year. As much flack as we gave Taijuan Walker last year, he deserves that much credit this season for the work that he's put in. So to Taijuan Walker, I've done this before. I'll say it again. Tip of the cap to you, sir. You have earned all of the respect that you've gotten this season.